And welcome to the July 17th meeting of Wasatch Groves Town Council. You have the roll call, please. President.
Here.
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 Here. Okay, we can stand for the pledge and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom and guidance. We thank you for the opportunity to represent the town of Wasatch Groves. We pray for those that are serving our country overseas, keep them safe, and we thank you for the rain that you've sent. We pray in your name. Amen. All right, any additions to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question kind of directed at town manager. Mark, is it maybe more better if discussion about contribution to the capital payment for Ocean Road, it's better in concert with the discussion of the budget rather than doing it after the fact?
You mean the one, yeah, that you had, Robin, in addition to, under new business?
Yeah.
I don't see why we couldn't combine and do all of them.
Just bring it up at that time.
Yeah.
All right. Would someone like to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have an approval, a motion, second by Ryan. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign, motion passes. Moving to the consent agenda. Any questions, problems, issues? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ryan makes a motion to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second by Jim. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. No presentation, no committee reports. Before we go on to item 5, we have two different camps represented. We have Lieutenant David Combs from the Sheriff's Department, and a notice we have Joe Talley, who's a candidate for the Palm Beach County Sheriff out there observing our meeting. So we'll hopefully y'all don't get in a fight or anything. No, I'm just joking. All right, ordinance 5.
Mr. Mayor, this is first reading of an ordinance amending the Unified Land Development Code to create a new Article 41 entitled Planning and Development, PUD. I know there's a presentation by staff, but at this time I'd like to read the ordinance by title. Ordinance number 2012-08, ordinance of the town of Wasatch Groves 4, amending the town of Wasatch Groves Unified Land Development Code, the LDC, to create a new Article 41 entitled Plan Unit Development, PUD, providing for purposes and intent, land use and development, intensity regulations, objectives and standards, inclusive of design requirements and performance standards, application requirements, and amendments to approved PUDs, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and effective date.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll be honest with you. I hear PUD and the first thing, and the Karen back away neck right. So anyway, explain to us what we're doing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The PUD ordinance has been in front of the Planning and Zoning Board for the last 4 months. And Planning and Zoning recommended several changes, which the staff wholeheartedly agrees with. And before I get into my presentation, I just want to compliment PUD on their diligence, input, and comments. They made the ordinance I think a lot better than it was as it when it was first presented, and they're to be commended for their efforts. At the last meeting on July 12th, after incorporating several months worth of the comments, the PUD did recommend approval of the ordinance by 85 votes. And I'd like to read the staff findings, staff recommendation first, and I'll get into a brief presentation and answer any questions that the council had. Staff finds the proposed PUD generally consistent with the comprehensive plan and the review criteria listed in section 160-020. Those are the criteria that the revision to the zoning code has to meet in order for staff to recommend approval. And on that basis, staff recommends approval of ordinance 2012-08. The PUD, the initial impetus for the PUD was the assignment of the multiple land use category to the two large parcels at Lee Road and Southern. There wasn't really a mechanism in the ULDC to implement the land use categories. So that was the initial start, was to draft a zoning ordinance, if you will, to implement the multiple land use, future land use categories. And we started out writing the ordinance specifically to implement the land use category, but as we were going through it, we realized that the town could also gain some benefits if we allowed the PUD to apply to other commercial properties that are located along Southern Boulevard. So the ordinance that is written at this point can be applied to the any property with an multiple land use category or other commercial properties along Southern Boulevard that meet certain criteria. And those criteria are that it have at least 600 feet of frontage so that it can, properties can take advantage or implement the Southern Boulevard Access Management Plan and help to minimize the number of driveways from properties on Southern Boulevard. And we also have criteria in there as far as the minimum depth from Southern Boulevard. We have, it's sort of a floating distance. One of the town objectives that we want to try to implement through the PUD is the extension of Tangerine to Citrus. So the second partial criterion is that it have at least enough depth on the property to include the extension of the Tangerine right-of-way across the town. So if you take those two criteria, 600 feet frontage and 400 feet depth, that translates to a minimum parcel size of approximately 5 acres. Whereas the multiple land use category requires a minimum parcel of 50 acres. So this gives an opportunity, the way the PUD is written right now, gives an opportunity to smaller parcels to take advantage of the PUD while at the same time implementing the Southern Boulevard Access Management Plan and the town's planning directives to try to extend Tangerine across the town from its eastern border all the way over to Reed Road. Now, this, if you look at the properties that front Southern Boulevard, most of the frontage properties don't extend to that depth. So if properties came in under conventional zoning on the frontage, they don't extend deep enough to include the Tangerine right-of-way. So this gives either a single property owner or multiple property owners the opportunity to get together to develop a project under a specific master plan, which includes the Tangerine right-of-way. Those were the two primary reasons why we expanded the PUD to include commercial properties only on Southern Boulevard. And in addition to that, the PUD requires, as part of the application, that a master plan be developed, giving the town the opportunity to address issues such as buffers, connectivity, open space, impervious areas, up front in the zoning process, where under the current town code, those issues don't really come into play until the site plan process. So, as the codes are currently written, you would have to have the proper land use designation and a proper zoning designation, and then address those issues in the site plan approval process. Under the PUD, those issues can be addressed earlier in the rezoning process, as opposed to being delayed until the site plan process. So during the deliberation of the zoning, PUD zoning on a property, you can get much more specific in terms of a lot of the issues that the town has to look at, as opposed to the current ULDC and straight zoning categories. In addition to that, the PUD has a section in it that there's a requirement that the application be coordinated with the roadway, equestrian trails, and injury advisory committee, so that they have input early in the approval process to make a determination as to whether the particular parcel is appropriate for horse trails, greenways, or other trails, as opposed to the current code, which has no provision for any form of input from that committee into the land development process. And getting back to the issue of tangerine and citrus, through the PUD process, the town has the opportunity for decreased costs in terms of the extension of tangerine, because you can institute conditions of approval that requires the dedication of the right-of-way if the right-of-way does not exist on a particular parcel, and you can also discuss some capital improvement costs in terms of construction and paving or closing surfacing of tangerine road. It's under the PUD, it's easier to coordinate the location of access drives, because you will be aggregating a little bit larger parcels, and you can require that one or more parcels utilize the same driveways, and in addition, require connectivity east and west between the parcels to minimize the number of driveways and entrances. It also provides opportunities for increased open space and pervious surfaces, as I mentioned before. That there's a provision in the PUD that the town can impose conditions of approval where town objectives can be more formally incorporated into development approval than is the case with a straight zoning. Normally under straight zoning, a property would come in and just apply for example, the CL zoning district. The district is applied, and there's no discussion of actually what is going to go on the parcel other than the approved uses that are in the zoning code. Under the PUD, you have the opportunity right up front to talk about those issues. We also, under the PUD, there's a requirement that property owners coordinate with requires cross-access east and west between neighboring parcels. And again, the whole world of conditions of approval is open for discussion on the PUD process. We do have provisions in the PUD for waivers of code requirements, but in trade for the approval of waivers, the applicant has to demonstrate that he is providing the town with substantial community benefits. And that in a nutshell is the main components of the and certainly we'll be glad to answer questions.
All right. Tom?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I think, if I'm hearing it right, one of the main reasons why we're doing this relates to Tangerine Drive. And I don't know that that's currently a priority of the council. I'd like to point out that from C Road to E Road, it's a residential road or it doesn't exist. And I don't know if any of those people are looking to see the properties redeveloped into some commercial thing, but I don't think that that's within the council's thinking. The 600-foot requirement, you know, it seems to me that it's tailored for specific properties, and that for some reason we're not doing any Tangerine west of B Road, but we're still allowing properties on the city west of B Road to be in this. So I think we're being sold a bill of goods as to why we're doing it. I think that it does provide, and I was at some of the P&Z meetings, it does provide the ability to do special conditions for properties. But it also allows the subdivision of parcels into smaller parcels of fairly limited size, where they can just be very small out parcels, except they're all just contained one within the other, and there's no more requirements to buffer between those parcels or to do certain other things. So while we're saying that it's a way to make things better according to our code, it's really a way to weaken our code and a way to make it better for development and to encourage development. And I think that we should understand that that's the main reason of what's going on here. And we're in a process of a moratorium to discuss what's the proper thing to do in the town, and at the same time, we're going after the current set of things and predicating most everything here on Tangerine Drive, which once again, it goes right by my house. I know the landowner that owns a good portion of it, almost 1,000 feet. They have no intention of doing this. They don't want to see this done. The people next to it have lived there for 30 years. They don't want to see this road go through. They like what they have now, which is a nice little quiet dirt road they dead end. So I don't want to encourage change at all. So I would, personally be opposed to this from on that standpoint, if that's what this is all about. There's a lot of other things in here that are just really, gobbledygook. They're talking about preserves and they're talking about this, that, and the other thing, but in reality, they reduce preserves. They weaken our codes, and they work things to developers' benefit. And I think that there's a lot of that going on. I'm opposed to it. And I think that this really works to cause that to happen. And we were supposed to look at a moratorium so that we could discuss what it is we wanted to do. And this is being slated in advance. And giving it, putting this PUD in place and applying it to certain other properties, which is very ambiguous what those may be. And, they're all at the discretion of the council. So I think that those are concerns that I have relative to this. There's other technical this and that's and the others that they went through with P&Z. And if it took 4 months, God bless them, I'm really happy to hear that. I'm glad they looked at it deeply, and I'm glad they were concerned. The fact that something takes a while to get done doesn't make it bad. I time's been spent on it, we should automatically say that that's okay. Because I think that sometimes we're just worn down through the process. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, Bob?
I don't have any comments.
Right. Jim?
I have a question. Jim, you've got the coordination, use of coordination or cooperation with our equestrian center. I don't, I guess if you could define that for me, or if we can be a little more specific as to what that really represents, because the term kind of leaves it too general in my mind.
Okay, yeah, the concept that I envision there is that the applicant for PUD approval would take his plan to that committee, and that committee would review it in terms of their plans. Do we have a horse trail plan for this parcel? Do we have a greenway or any other projects that we would like to see included in the master plan? And once that happens, that would either be incorporated by the applicant into the master plan, or he has to bring that committee's recommendations with him back to P&Z and to the council, and explain why he can or cannot do it. And then the council still has the ability to assign a condition stating that you shall incorporate.
Okay. I was thinking that maybe where you're going, but, I guess that's why I use coordination, because it took a lot less words. My perspective was that what we intended to do in this would be, in fact, what you stated. This has to go to the committee, and they have to, and in conjunction with that, they have to provide a report to the council on their position. Now, if it says, working together, and the requester makes modifications or makes some allowances that the committee like and are pushing for, requesting, or there was some kind of compromise. But the committee, basically, what I would say in here is that they have to be presented, and they have to present a report. Whether the applicant also presents what the committee recommendations were, I still look at the committee to directly address the council on their position. So I would rather than use coordination, and wherever we have that same intention of that word, that we say something more specific, that the committees to see this presented to them and have an opportunity to comment and or make suggestions and make final recommendations to the council. That's what I would say here, not coordination, because I don't know if that really accomplished that.
Okay, the reason why the language is a little general is because it's possible in one instance where the committee may have a specific horse trail going through the master plan, while in another instance they may take it to the committee and say, well, we don't have anything planned. So I can see what you're saying, and we certainly can beef it up to require a presentation of the master plan, get the comments of the committee, and formally respond to the comments of the committee as part of their continuing application process.
Well, we should probably include just as applicable, or as determined by town management if there's a section presentation required. But in general, maybe, and I don't know if that's something that would work better, or give the committee the opportunity to hear it and weigh in if they have no contribution to the format of what being asked for. Coordination left me kind of, they were CC'd on everything that was sent through. That's coordination. So I didn't see his voice there per se. And I was really more like, if they're a committee for this council, they report back to the council what they like or what they'd like to see. And if they got it, I think that they should say that also. So that's more along our lines, what I was looking at for coordination. I didn't go through to see it, how many times you use the word, and meaning the same thing, but I would suggest you put something like that in there. If the council, supports the idea that we be more specific, we're looking for them to have a voice, and I want to hear the voice once they've had the opportunity to be presented.
Yeah, well, that certainly was my intent, and I can beef up that language to make their input more formal and their response more formal.
I mean, if the council thinks it's, it's not just wasting your time, but I'm trying, that's what I was thinking we're trying to do, and I think it's worthwhile stating what the intent is, if we can state it without going into another whole page of specifics.
Sure. Mayor Mann?
Okay.
Okay, can I respond to?
Yeah.
Councilman Wilson?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, if I could I make a motion that we delete the references to tangerines, so that we can have a decision on whether or not we're gonna compose this road on everybody all the way across the board. I think that it's been deleted already from the college property.
Right.
It's been, it's substantially, not there. It's an access road within the other property, and now to require it's gonna go through everybody else's place just because. And, I don't believe that this council's idea that we should have a little city place idea that, was previously proposed. I don't think we should have that. I don't think it should be written in stone here that this is the reason we're doing it, and that everybody's gonna have this right down the throat. So I would make a motion that we delete the references to tangerine from this.
So if you take that part out, you'd be all right with,
So long as it has the issues that the council reviews. Everything is Jim's saying, and that it's coordinated, truly coordinated, and I think that we should go a step further and that it receives an approval from that committee. Because coordination, as you said, could just be, I told you what we were gonna do.
Well, that's why I was saying on the report, that their position is what I would expect to
Yes,
see,
yes.
which is either.
Just like we get a P and Z approval or a
Recommendation.
Recommendation, which is what we
But-
normally would get.
With the deletion of the tangerine issue, because I think that really takes and bumps forward something that, I don't know, is that.
I'd like to hear Jim's comment relative to that suggestion and the general concern, this is pushing through Tangerine for all the property owners along that
Well, yes.
corridor.
What we did when we drafted, or I drafted the ordinance, was to take a look at the town's comprehensive plan and to take a look at the MREG and the Southern Boulevard Access Management Plan, rural district guidelines, all of those different planning documents that the town has adopted. And there's language in virtually all of those documents stating that it's a goal or an objective of the town to extend Tangerine east to west. Now, if that is no longer a goal of the town, then obviously that can't be used as a basis to support the PUD. But I looked at documents that were formal adopted plans of the town, and that's what the basis is. Now if it's regardless of the PUD, any property owner along Southern Boulevard has the option of coming for a land use plan amendment to commercial and commercial zone. So this isn't necessarily encouraging development. This is just a way to implement development on parcels that the town has already assigned a commercial future land use designation to. They have to go through that entire process first, or simultaneously, that's theoretically possible. So this is not a vehicle for someone to come in and create commercial development opportunities that have not already been determined by the council.
I understand that. I think that it is, though, pushing Tangerine Drive, and that's my specific objection, is that it pushes Tangerine Drive.
Yeah, like I said, if that is no longer reason that we set up the criteria for the size of the parcels here is, if you look at the, if you look east of C, almost all of the properties are essentially little strips along southern, and they don't extend far enough north to get to the Tangerine right of way or the extension thereof. So this is a vehicle that will allow that to happen, but if Tangerine is no longer a town goal, then one of the primary benefits of the PUD to the town is then erased. So I still think the PUD is a good vehicle because of all of the opportunities it gives the town. We may make the parcel a little bit smaller so it doesn't have to go all the way up to where the Tangerine extension is.
I think the objection is to Tangerine, but as Jim mentions here, it does lead to the commercialization and the movement and the creation of bigger parcels and the removal of the residential aspect of the neighborhood. And we have to remember that from D to E, there's people from small parcels the entire way across that are not waiting to cash in. They're waiting to have something built in their front yard, and somebody build some road, some paved road through there and a lot of traffic. And these things are impacts that we have to address. And as well as in my neighborhood, I don't think anybody's looking for the big score there. And so I would really personally be opposed to it the way it is. If the Tangerine comes out and we deal with it for the larger parcels, that's another issue.
Okay, I've got,
Mike had something to say, or did I?
No, all I was gonna say is, your discussion of Tangerine, to the extent that it's in your comp plan, if you were to make a decision to change the PUD, and to eliminate reference, you wouldn't make this inconsistent with the comp plan, nor would it change the goal within, but that could be a subject that could be reviewed while you're reviewing the comp plans during this moratorium period.
I certainly think that it should.
That's all I was
I
gonna
think in
say.
some of the early visioning, a lot of the town people were thinking, it was kind of the idea along Southern. What could we do along Southern that would well reflect on our community without looking like just a strip of commercial along Southern? And so the idea was to maybe turn this idea into Tangerine, facing Tangerine both sides, kind of what the developer that Bob has brought in for his thoughts on a little piece of that college site. I think there's a practicality that a town our size could never support, a road the whole width of our town with little shops and things like that. I mean, it just couldn't work. Maybe the concept will work itself out to where there will be nodules, that would maybe one off a B road both sides that would contain some shops like that. I think the other would kind of be determined by need. But I don't know, we've got a park on the other side. The idea of it going all the way through and becoming a thoroughfare was never anybody's intent. It was more like, very slow, low impact, course type things. But anyway, access.
One comment. Jim, if we take the reference out, and I agree with Tom, but I'm trying to make sure I understand what that, you have to, now on the fly here, tell me what changes you might make. I think you started to touch on. Or the other thing is, does this diminish the advantages that, as I understand it, were being accrued to the town? How much of that do we lose in this approach that we're going down this path? So I mean, let's say half of the advantages are gone. I'd like just if you can, again on the fly, give me kind of a take on that.
Yeah, well, I think virtually all of the potential advantages with these, if we eliminate Tangerine, I think all of the other potential advantages to the town that I mentioned remain in place. The larger the parcel that you're dealing with, the more opportunity you have to And if I may just respond quickly to one of the mayor's comments about, we don't see necessarily a strip of small shops, number one, they couldn't be supported, and that's not what we're looking for. I've had the opportunity the last couple of weeks to fill in and sort of be the temporary staff person at town hall, and there are commercial inquiries out there that are not retail related and are more farm agricultural type of businesses that would still fall under our commercial land use and zoning category. So just the fact that we're creating commercial opportunities doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be promoting a strip of small shops. There are some very appropriate, I think, ideas out there that could take advantage of that and be more in character with the type of commercial that the town would like to see.
All right. Any other council?
I know that we've said we aren't encouraging development, and I think that's true, but one other thing we have to think about is, there is potentially a need for more east-west access within our town, and having Tangerine not necessarily from border to border, but possibly through B through F might be beneficial, just because, as the town grows and, there is going to be more traffic, and people who want to go east-west, do we want it to go along Collecting, or would we like to have it closer to Southern? It's just a question to think about and to see if there's a need for that. So I don't want to dismiss Tangerine completely being extended, because it is a possibility that we will need it.
Well, I would just kind of, I'd prefer not to have it in my neighborhood. And I certainly don't think that what you're saying is all the properties like the college and the Wasatch Commons and the B2C development, that all that is going to be funneled down to D Road and go in and out of D Road. Because that's not what we're talking about. That's not what's considered in the traffic studies. None of that is what we're talking about. But if what we're going to do is change the character of that neighborhood from C Road to F Road by leaving Tangerine in there and enshrining it once again and once again and once again, then that is what's going to happen. We are going to get consolidation, and everybody is going to be forced to sell their little house and move because they're going to have rooms to go in their backyard, or a big tractor dealership, or some other intensive use, or things are going to stay the way they are. I'm in favor of things staying where they are. Some people want to change Wasatch Groves to something totally different, but I'm not one of those people. So I think that we need to remove it. I made a motion to do so.
Okay. I've got three.
Mr. Mayor, one comment, if you will, I'm sorry. One that comes to mind as we have this conversation. We take it out. That doesn't preclude us, I'm trying to look at what Ryan raised, because that doesn't preclude the council from somebody coming forward in the future saying, hey, I want to do something on this property, I happen to have the land up through the right-of-way Tangerine, and the council has an opportunity to consider it, but not automatically grant it. I mean, we had the opportunity to say, yeah, that was fit into what the town's scheme of things are at that time. I'm trying to address what Ryan raised, and I agree with Tom, but this was our chance to listen to each other's comments and thoughts, so that provoked the thought that we still would have that opportunity, depending on the situation, but it doesn't preclude us from, and obviously a comp plan has already got some language in there talking about, so we have other avenues. If it comes to be something we want to address, we have the ability to address it.
Yeah, that's true, because like I said, the first step is to gain approval of the land use. And there's nothing to preclude any property owner once the moratorium is required. Nothing to preclude any landowner in town coming forward with an application to do anything
got 3 public comments, then we're gonna entertain Tom's motion to take out Tangerine. And that's, Mike, we all right with that?
Oh, that's fine, you just have to remember at that time we get a second.
Yeah, no, I understand. We don't have a motion, no, first.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, I've got Richard, and then Nita. And then, I, yeah, Virginia, you're throwing something else, right?
Yeah, that's why
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
specific
no,
goal, I just
okay.
wanted to confirm.
Okay. Richard?
Good evening. From what I understand, a planned unit development, the developer clusters the residential units in small units to create a maximum open space. Typically, the developer develops into park and recreational areas. Normally, a non-profit association or organization provides for the maintenance of the common area, not the taxpayer. Cluster homes in large open green spaces, PUDs are referred to as multiple land use zoning, include townhouses, garden apartments, restaurants, houses, shopping. This large project is normally provided with environmental impact study conducted if it's a large project and analyze the long-term impact of the project will have on the quality of the surrounding environment. The environmental impact study provides local government agencies and public with important information regarding the environmental impact that can be expected from the proposed development. In this ordinance, what is large is subjective. I'm sure this project isn't large enough for that, but to me, it is. As it reads, it may include over a sixth of the town's area. We need this information. Those property owners that wish to develop PUDs in this document are not required to provide any environmental impact, and the expense of the impact on the roads, the environment, and the water is to be absorbed by the town and the water control. The most important issue to me is the water and the water table and its effect on the surface water and the groundwater, as its impact on the residents of this town is not addressed. There is a reference that the Water Control District and South Water Management District will provide input. That is our tax dollars, not the developers. Some of the elevations of these properties may be below the normal natural fluctuation of the elevations in the canals. Will this affect what level will be kept in the canals without flooding these properties? These properties are to be connected to sewer, and there will be no invert requirements. The elevation requirements are not specified anywhere in this document. How much fill does developers want to put in? I'm sure it's going to be a minimum, and if it's not high enough, we're going to have complaints. People in the north, which I am on the north end of the town, are going to have not enough water in the canals, and they're going to complain about flooding. So this has to be addressed. It's nowhere addressed. It is probably one of our most important issues. This will affect all properties in Waxahachie Grove. I did not anywhere even see a mention of this concern. Mr. Spence had said there was no problem, just put up signs saying no swimming, no fishing. Why no swimming, no fishing? What's wrong with the water? What's not safe for humans? Is it safe for our water table? Why are we not requiring the developers to provide this information? What is it that the water quality effect and effects on the drainage? There are green spaces and there are open spaces and there are filter marshes and there are evaporation ponds. This property, it has 600 feet, it has a driveway, it has branching off. The former gas property goes all the way from the southern to the north side of Okeechobee. It would qualify for this. By the terms of this, may include some areas of the north side of Okeechobee and all along the southern possibly. These development costs are being shipped to the taxpayer and the Water Control District, and those are all our bills. This is a very broad brush for development without any consideration of the residents' water rights. The property appraiser classify some of the properties in this area as wetlands and preserves. But we need to know what is the impact on our wells and our water table. What is, without good water and without knowing what the drainage is commercial and the drainage held in this area, we may call ourselves rural, but without good water, we are not. Thank you.
Okay, Nick?
We don't want to eat road.
Before, and in response to that, and actually in agreement with that, her concerns are exactly the reason for what was called the linear park or the Southern Greenway, or what we have described as necessary and needed in this town. And I would like to see the support of staff for those goals rather than the supposedly town-initiated, and I don't know who asked for it, PUD ordinance that we're being presented with for tonight. And who paid for this? Fairly us, if it was someone else, that was the town-initiated. So I really think that this is something that we need to address in this town. Are we a town that secretly works to support the developer of his interests and pretends to be in favor of the environment, pretends to be in favor of parks, but in reality, we're just a development district and a development facilitation board. And that's what it seems to me. I look here and I see you're right on top, town-initiated money. Whom the town initiated, and why?
Do you answer that?
Yeah, well, the town approved the multiple land use schedule on those two large parcels last year. And there is no zoning that implements the multiple land use schedule. So, in order to come up with a zoning district to implement the multiple land use schedule, that was the basic impetus for it. Now, since those properties need to be rezoned, it's on a cost recovery basis, that those applicants are paying for the PUD ordinance, although it was not their basic idea to do it.
I guess what we're asking, whose idea was it to go?
It was staff idea, it was my idea,
Okay.
based on the fact that we approved the multiple land use designations on two slightly less than 100 acre parcels, and we do not have a vehicle to implement those multiple land use designations.
It does this PUD open us up to a developer that wants to build houses more than one house per 5 acres?
Only if, only through the multiple land use designation, which we have to give them before they come in for the zoning. The only way that residential can be built in the PUD period is if the multiple land use designation is assigned to a large parcel. And the residential units are part of the multiple land use, like the parcel on the west side of B was initially.
But this will make it easier to do a multiple land use MLU?
No. No.
This will not?
No. Because you have to get the multiple land use designation first. I mean, this does not make it easier to get the multiple land use designation.
But Jim, isn't it true that certain parcels are exempt from being multiple land use?
Are exempt from
Did not have to be multiple land use and can still be PUDs, is that correct?
under this ordinance.
Okay, so what you said is partially correct, but it's also true that if you don't have an MLU, you can have a PUD, and if you have a PUD, you can build as they're concerned. So, am I correct, or do you have some language that says otherwise?
You can't, the only way you can build residential units is with a multiple land use designation. the PUD can be assigned to a parcel with a commercial land use designation, but you can't build residential units.
Where is that written down?
Well, it says in the PUD that you have to have one of three land use categories, either MLU, commercial low, or commercial low office. And in those land use categories, you cannot do residential.
Okay, so the MLU comes first, the PUD comes second, is that correct?
Yes.
And no property that's residential in any form, unless it's in an MLU, can get the PUD.
That's true.
And that is all written down. Or that's just what we're saying tonight, because I think it needs to be written down, because that's,
Well, yeah, we can throw out that language, but, it says that you can have one of three land use categories. Commercial land use, commercial or commercial law office. And if you don't have one of those land use categories, you can't apply for the PUD.
I think what we're getting at, to cut to the chase, there is concern that someone will come in with a density of housing greater than what our community is. It changes the voting, it changes the water use, it changes everything. It changes a lot, and I think that's what the concern is on it. When I hear PUD, that's typically what I'm thinking. Clustered townhouses or something worse.
Okay, the only way that can happen is if you first assign the multiple land use category, and one of the land uses in the MLU is residential. That's the only way that can happen.
let me ask you this, Jim. Assuming the college decided to not build on the property, and assuming they have R5, and they have 600 foot of frontage on Southern, now they have residential, could they get a PUD?
No.
Why not? Because they don't have the other things.
Because they don't have a MLU, CL, or CLO land use designation.
They're starting over. Yeah, because we changed it back to R5.
Yeah, that's right.
And that would preclude them from any PUD abilities.
Yes. If they wanted to do some kind of a PUD with residential in it, they'd have to come back and reapply for multiple land use with residential as a component of that multiple land use.
Say that someone who already had an approved MLU currently decided to add a residential component in a PUD. Is that possible with this ordinance?
No.
Because we would have to change the current MLU designation to residential.
Well, yes, in the MLU designations, we have very specific language in the comprehensive plan in terms of what they can do on parcel. The parcel on the east has X amount of square footage of retail, X amount of square footage of office, and 128 beds assisted living facility. If they wanted to take that, that's just a living facility, and switch to residential units, they'd have to do a land use plan and then have to come back in and get approval from the council.
Okay, Dean?
If I can respond to that and then go on to what I was going to say, if I'm reading this correctly, page 1, under 2, general information, the purpose, properties assigned in MLU, future land use designation on the future land use map will be eligible to apply for PUD approval. In addition, certain properties with a commercial future land use designation and located along Southern Boulevard would also be eligible to apply. And it goes on that later on, you are not even necessarily having to front on Southern, but that a FDOT approved driveway is sufficient, and it is encouraged to go and use that same driveway. And since it can be assembled by small properties, you can have kind of like a tree branch, a cluster of commercial properties that would all be eligible for this PUD. Now, when I saw this first come in front of the P&Z board, the P&Z board actually asked for the CL to be removed and it to be only for the MOU. There are certain people in this room that weren't happy with that. and it found itself back in again. Now, I want you to realize a little bit of math. I know some of you do some accounting, and it wasn't made quite easy because it referred to 1.8 table in the comp plan. If you're multiplying your square footage per acre, meaning 43,560, by that table of 0.1 commercial, you are actually permitting 4,356 square feet per acre. Now you cluster all of this nice little stuff together. In addition, there is no limit to how deep this property can go. There are actually more restrictions on the MOU than there are on this HUD, this CL. So take the guest property that has now been sold, and I don't know who bought it, under some attorney in, I think, Palm Beach or West Palm Beach. That goes all the way past Okeechobee. There is no restriction. There's a minimum depth, but not a maximum depth. So now imagine this high density and the potential of development that you've given rights to. Is that basically what's happened? Is this density of, when we're looking at the Simon brothers and Bob Bentz's 21 acres, we had allowed density up front on that MOU in order to accommodate less density in the back, to have a nice transition, to have a linear park, to have some residential. We allowed that high density. Now we've taken that high density and used that very same number for everything else that is potentially built on the site. If that doesn't sound, I mean, how much commercial does this town want? Is the creation of Tangerine Drive what decides how much commercial we have in this town? Something's wrong about this.
Okay, thank you.
All
right, let's wrap it up.
Okay. The engineering has been mentioned, the water has been mentioned, compatibility is an issue, obviously. Regarding the equestrian, there's greenways is missing there, and you have responded to the coordination isn't enough. A lot of times we fall into very weak words, and we need to be stronger. And then HUDs just have a very bad history, and we have it proved in our own town. We have small little clusters that are not necessarily ag or agrarian, that are not necessarily always productive for our town. Any questions?
Yes? Taïd.
Thais Gonzalez, 13090 Raymond. A couple of things that have been mentioned. Mr. Fleischman, I'm sorry, he said that this would be a good vehicle. I'm really wondering, a good vehicle for whom? I mean, how many people are really being, let me back up, I'm sorry. What I'm trying to say here, it says, the town of Waxahachie Groves find the adoption of this ordinance to create a PUD zoning category is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan and the best health and welfare interest of the town, its property owners and residents. I mean, how many residents is this affecting? I mean, most of it, I don't believe it's gonna be a good overall for the whole town. I think this is just in the convenience of a few groups of the town. That's what I'm understanding at least. Also, Mr. Fleischman mentioned that some of the commercial businesses will be ag. Well, guess what? We have ag commercial all over town. So, I mean, and to wrap it up, well, one more thing, Mr. Liang mentioned that, the town is going to grow. I don't know, is it really going to grow? Or, I mean, I think the idea for most people is just to keep it as it is, not growing really. I mean, try to keep it agriculture, rural you know. Personally, I moved to Loxahatchee and I love it because I have the best of both worlds. I live out in the country and I have Wellington to brush on. So to me, that's perfect. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
In Lawrenceport.
Evening. So you know I'm on your planning and zoning, and I've been on 2 different boards downtown in this area, under Graham and Dave's. And, you know, we could talk about, you could get mired in specifics to most of the people glaze over. But I think what we're missing here is really the big picture, and I know I've spoken to you about this in the past. You're going to be continually mired in all these technical battles, and you're giving away your power. You know, the cost of running the town's going up 36%. Government light is going to $1.5 million for a town hall and a hardened building. And there isn't really the kind of overall planning that you could actually use use a town hall to create a town, like a traditional town. I mean, that would be a great way to start a traditional town. And what I'm talking about in terms of like the overall thematics is when the incorporators convinced a lot of the people to vote to get away from the county, to protect themselves from development, you went through a process with Calvin Giordano. The people who lived here before went through this process. It took 1.5 years. And I keep going back to this because this is really the main document that tells you what the people want. What we're doing, the path we're on, is the exact opposite. Now, if that's really what you want to do, then, let's do it. And we can do it in a better and more organized way and less damage than what we're doing. Calvin Giordano came up with a 10-page document by the incorporators, and the last 2 pages, which are the main thematics, was a direct lift from this. And you sort of get in trouble at college or beyond for pulling a lift like that. But nevertheless, so either, and most of the town doesn't really show up. Most of the town is not really involved. They're kind of that feeling, kind of like New Hampshire, live free or die, and there's staying away. And maybe you get that feeling that you're on the right course because they're not there, and maybe they wake up one day and wander down and say, what happened? Or they put up a for sale sign. So it's a little confusing, and I think we're really not quite, either we're in control and we don't really know it, or we're really not in control and heading off really down the wrong path. And I keep bringing up, there are people who are thinking about this thing. This is I brought this up before, this is a new book by Duani, Theory and Practice of Agrarian Urbanism. I mean, people are thinking and writing in this area specifically, and we're not using it. We're using, like, ULDCs is, again, like a college student taking the paper from some kid that did well at Palm Beach County, and then driving around and looking out the windshield and saying, well, I don't really like this, and I don't like that, and they're marking it up. And this is what you're living with. And it's causing the costs are going up. They're struggling over there. They're all this development. You guys are struggling, arguing over technical issues and how, it's going to be a nightmare, and a moratorium work to try to patch this thing up. It's like taking a bad ship out to sea. I don't know really
So
what else to tell you.
let's cut to the thing. Do you think we should approve this or not?
A PUD is a tool. I mean, just like nuclear energy, it can be used for something good or something bad. But the way, the track that we're on now, letting loose a PUD here now would be a very bad idea. it would take control away from you. It's hard to write it in a way where you keep control.
So in order to keep more control, we would need to vote against this.
I think that part is clear. But what isn't clear is, what is it you guys really want to do? Where is your real direction? And how can you better plan to make it more visible to the people so they can see what's going on and be a part of it? Predictability is very important in real estate. I don't know if there's anything people can do to help it. You know?
Well, believe it or
I
not,
feel for you guys.
believe it or not, most of us, I think, most of us on this board want to keep it like it is. Most of those that were part of the corporation, you brought up the neighborhood plan. I invested 3 years of my life on that committee, putting that together, and the only reason, yes.
Well, it's very specific and it gives a
Yeah,
lot of
and
content.
the only reason that we put any commercial at all in that was our advisors from Palm Beach County said, you have to give something commercial. You have to put something in there commercial, or the county will never approve it. So at that time, the language was low impact, you know, the commercial would be along Southern Boulevard, because we felt that was on the edge of our community and impacted the least.
Two things. One, on the state level, they kind of look at a new county as a cell that should live on its own, and that it should capture its trips and have everything it needs. And in reality, when you leave this town and you go somewhere for any purpose whatsoever, you drive by everything you could possibly want and then come back. So, but they're taking apart that state part of it, you know. But that's their thought. The other thing that you're giving away when you're giving away the control of Southern is the transfer of development rights. And I know I keep bringing it up, and it sounds like an old saw, but it's a tool that can get that sense of entitlement that they have in Okeechobee for commercial, to get it off and down onto Southern. But when, you know, Nina goes into the technical specifics and how you're giving out away more, you're giving away also your power to do right by the people who feel impacted on Okeechobee and shifting it down to Southern.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I could for a second. What you bring up is a good point. Things that other people told us ended up in a title that now people show as the Bible. That's my concern with this tangerine issue. It's my concern with a lot of things in the comp plan, the things that are not necessarily popular with the majority of the people in the town currently, or the council, have been put in there and are used as touchstones by people to make us do things that we don't want to do. The council, you know, there's a very specific piece of property where the council voted no, and yet staff and P&Z approved it because it's all written down that we need to. I think that's absurd. If we need to, there's no reason to vote, and our vote is perfunctory. Or we need to change those things that make staff say, this is what ought to be, and we say, no, we don't think this is it. It's illogical, it's contradictory, and there's no reason that we need to continue that. So in the spirit of the moratorium, I don't know why we're proceeding so, you know, willy-nilly ahead with this PUD issue. I think at the very least it should be limited to the two properties that are exempted from the ordinance. You know, they're exempt from the moratorium, and not to the rest, because what are we saying? And you can apply, you know, how should this all just go out there? And I think that I certainly agree with Lawrence in that we have to decide what it is we want. We have to come to a decision, and I think that there's too many things trying to happen before we can come to a decision, and eventually people are going to say, well, what are you talking about? We already did this, that, and the other thing. You can't change it now. And I'm saying, yeah, let's not do it then. Let's think about what we want to do first, rather than do it because somebody's initiating this ordinance to get it done. You know, and I don't know what it is, and I don't particularly want it, whatever it is.
All right, we have a, what's this, resolution No, this is
It's an ordinance.
ordinance before us. We've discussed it, I'll entertain a motion, if someone wants to make a motion, whether we approve this PUD ordinance.
This is, again, as you know, as an ordinance is 2 readings, so you would, if you vote tonight, you would just send it to second reading and the notice of public hearing.
I'll wait on a motion.
Before we make a motion,
If we make a motion.
or not,
Go ahead.
we've had some items raised that I'd like to hear from both Mr. Fleshman and Mr. Barton. If the council wants to add anything to that, responds to some of the issues that were addressed.
Well, we certainly can take out any reference to the extension of Tangerine. And I think Mrs. Corning raised a pretty good issue on the driveways, creating a flag lot and allowing properties back in line of frontage to come in just based on the width of the driveway, for example. So I think there's some language revisions that we can do to tighten that up. If you can turn to page 12 of 16 of the ordinance and staff report, item number 3 at the top of the page. That's the language that's the section that she's referred to. And I think if we revise that item number 3 to read, the frontage along Southern Boulevard shall be a minimum 600 feet and incorporate one of the following Southern Boulevard access scenarios. That will eliminate the possibility of essentially creating a flag lot where the driveway access southern and commercial properties came back to line. That would require that the property have 600 feet of frontage on southern, and also have its driveway access to southern be coordinated with the Southern Boulevard Access Management Plan, or an existing approved DOT driveway.
Mr. Mayor, on this particular issue, it would seem to me that we would prefer to have a parcel that was deeper than it is wide, and this allows for a parcel that's essentially only 75% as deep as it is wide. That's the minimum. I don't think that's really desirable. And as I understand the area and the Tangerine's location relative to Southern Boulevard, you would need to have at least 600, maybe 700 feet in order to come in line with the portion of Tangerine that goes from D to E, and various portions that go from D to C are located probably 600, 550 feet north of Southern. So I don't think it really incorporates it, and it cuts parcels in half, and it really doesn't line up with the real topography of the area from C to E. And I think that should be reworked. If we're going to rework it, if we're going to bring it back, it should be deeper than it is wide, in my thoughts, or at least square, 6 by 6.
Jim? I'm sorry. I didn't hear a response to one of the main things around listening to from the public is we're giving away control. We're giving away control. And I came into this discussion tonight understanding this was something that added to the town's control, added to the town's ability to, if you would, I'll use the word control, what is proposed and what's approved.
I certainly think that this adds to the town's control. And I mean, it creates a step in the process that is not there now. It requires, as part of the zoning process, an applicant to prepare a master plan that has to show what his this project is going to look like and how it's going to address town planning objectives. Under the current ordinance, if you have a future land use designation of commercial, you can come in and request commercial zoning, and that's it. You don't have to have any kind of plan. That plan comes later in the process. This gives the town a tremendous opportunity, in my mind, to look at the various planning issues, such as the intensity of the project, what's going to be in it, the open space, the incorporation of the trails, where you're going to get your access from the driveways you want, much earlier in the process than is required now. So on that basis, I conclude that it gives the town more control.
Mr. Mayor, semantically, he may be correct, but I think with regard to the regulatory situation that we have right now, with regard to what would be required, if you look at, just for example, three parcels along Southern Boulevard, unnamed, in their current state, would have to buffer particular ways between each other and to their attaching uses. If they were to go together, they would only have to buffer around the edge. The resulting buffer would be smaller. Therefore, you would have less than you have in the current situation. So they would give, the developer would have a facilitation. What we're having is a way to make it easier for the developer. And then the developer, after he's blended these three parcels together, could subdivide them down to 12. And then they would all not be required to buffer within each other, and you'd have the gas station that turns into the parking lot for the Walgreens that's got the diner and all the other stuff that's in Royal Palm Beach, and that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. And
I would like your
that's,
response.
I mean, that's, I'm just saying, that's what I'm
Try to
saying.
make Jim for his opinion, for his guidance.
Okay, well, I would argue that in a situation like that, the town has, like I said, has the ability to add conditions.
But currently, they don't have the ability to do it. And therefore, if we don't do this, they can't ask us to do that. And so our control is greater because it's not going to happen.
Okay, let's have
I mean, that's my point there.
Okay, I would respond to that with, if three parcels combine and they come in for a master plan, the council has the ability to say, okay, if you came in individually, you would have these buffers between yourselves, in effect. Now, you can request a smaller buffer in between yourselves, which are essentially three commercial properties, but in trade for that, we're going to require that you have larger perimeter buffers.
Okay. However, in fact, that's not what happens in negotiations with the council. We get an agreement with the landowner, and then we bargain ourselves down from there, because somebody runs a nice PR campaign. So I think that really this is facilitating the ability for developers to do things. Now, I agree with you. The special requirements, special things that people have to do are great. However, I've got to say, I thought we had some, but in my absence, they were changed. So anytime you feel that there's something in writing, it can be changed by the council. And every time that there is something in writing, somebody touches it and says, look, this is written down, it needs to be. So I have a concern that this facilitates development. As you say, it is a vehicle by which you do these commercial zonings. You know, I think that that's an admission that I'm correct. And I'm not trying to debate Jim. I like Jim. I'm not trying to be mean in any way. I'm just saying that I really do see this as something that facilitates development. And if we're not, we really need to have the conversation about the moratorium. We need to have the conversation about what it is we want to do, not do it and then say, do we really want to do that? That's my point.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Questions for Jim? Any quick comments to wrap up?
Okay, it can't be used on any parcels along Southern Boulevard right now, except for the intermediate, that already has the land use. And it can be used on the parcel on the east side, or the west side, the shopping center parcel on the corner, if that land use plan amendment is approved. As it's written right now, it would not apply to any other properties on Southern Boulevard because they don't meet the size criteria. They would have to come in for a land use plan amendment, which can't happen until after the moratorium. So, we're creating a vehicle that may or may not be used after the moratorium, but it can be used on two parcels now.
Okay, all right. Is someone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, I'm bold. I want to make a motion to approve this ordinance with the changes that we've discussed. Frontage, depth, tangerine out, all the changes that we talked about. And I do that reflecting on, we had the P and Z board, that I believe unanimously approved this.
But they must not have all been there because obviously Lawrence is sick.
I believe they approved it, and reflecting on the reason we have them is to bring forward things that we want them to scrub. With the other changes that I just mentioned, I make a motion, we approve it.
We have a second.
I'd like to, if possible, amend, not that we're approving the motion, but that we're directing Jim to make those changes and then we can look at it, versus approving something that we're not seeing.
I withdraw my motion and ask that be done. I'm going to make a motion, then he goes back and makes changes, brings forward those items that we've touched on. And I think that'll still preserve our support of the P and Z board.
Okay. So basically bring it back to the next one.
And I would second that.
So it would come back for a second comment first reading.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Or for another,
Revised.
with revisions, see the language and the concepts on paper before you voted on it for the first reading. That's the motion.
Okay. So that's consensus? Yeah, all this time? Okay.
Well, if you could do a motion, I'm sorry.
No.
My first
I
time.
made a motion.
You made a motion, second.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second that we will bring it back with those changes. Any further discussion?
Bridget brought up good points in regards to the impacts to the rest of the town and also the impacts to our infrastructure. How will we address this? Would it be addressed for this, or would we have to implement another resolution?
I think a lot of her comments were based on the assumption that this was going to be applied to a specific parcel, or that it is already being applied, and that's not the case. It's a general ordinance. The master plan is more of a general conceptual thing. It still has to go through site plan approval, and that is the point. And it still has to get all the permits that it needs to get from the Water Control District in the South Florida Water Management District, and DLT, and all those environmental agencies. All of those studies and considerations and controls will be brought into the process at that time. So this is earlier in the process than a lot of those concerns that she raised should be addressed and will be addressed.
One of our concerns was who's going to pay for this process? Who's going to pay for this research? Is it going to be the Water Control Board, or is it going to be the developer?
All of the applications and consultants, advertising, all those fees are done on a cost recovery basis. So when somebody comes in for an application, they put down a deposit, and the various consultants that are reviewing it are all off of that escrow deposit.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out that if we're looking for the South Florida Water Management District to protect us, we're really in trouble. But the whole South Florida has been permitted by them. The entire situation that we have, they permitted, so they're not looking out for our interests. That's just my comment.
One of the things, and I do get frustrated. I've lived out here 33 years. I see no need, absolutely no need for any more commercial on Southern or Machoke. You know, and yet, every time we turn around, and right now, I don't think all of Southern is zoned commercial. I think a lot of that is still zoned R5, you know, and stuff like that. And it seems like every time we turn around, we've got somebody saying, well, we want to do this, and we're willing to sue you to get it. And, you know, so what protects us, what allows us to be able to do something to protect the lifestyle in a unique community that we all live in?
Well, it certainly is a difficult challenge on properties that already have a commercial.
Well, sure, I'm not talking the ones that are already commercial.
They have the right to make an application and come through the review process. And the council is charged with the responsibility to either approve or deny those things. Now, the principal document that you have as the basis to make your decision on is the comprehensive plan. And there's a lot of language in there that developers can hang their hat on at this point. There are some other issues that are identified in the plan, like buffering and consistency with the neighborhood. Those are sort of nebulous concepts, and everybody has their own definition of what constitutes. So when the town is taking a look at the comprehensive plan as a result of the moratorium, that's an opportunity there to put some more specific language in there and firm up those generalized terms. And once you have those terms, it becomes a lot easier to make, to justify a decision for or not.
Okay. Ron?
Jim, we pay you to work for us. When you mentioned about things that developers can hang their hats on, okay, I would expect, since we're going to be reviewing the comp plan and stuff, I'd expect for you to let us know all those so that we can either do away with them or review them or whatever. So that's one thing I'd expect from you.
Well, yeah, I think we're going to be looking at, okay, this is the language in there that supports, and this is the language in there that that says that we don't want it, or this is how we want it done, and then bring that back and we can talk about how to make the appropriate changes.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. It convinces us that we need it. All right, moving to item 6A, solid waste.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to do the administration before we read the title, or you want me to go ahead and read the title?
Yeah, you want to make any comment, Mark? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 2012-07, which was the second, 7, I guess, I got a low second. Anyway, resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Lake County, Florida, related to the division of residential solid waste collection services and facilities and programs. Solid waste collection services in the Town of Lake County, Florida, providing for purpose and definitions, providing for legislative determinations, establishing the estimated rate for the solid waste collection services assessment for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2012, directing the preparation of assessment roll, authorizing public hearing, and directing the provision of notice thereof, providing for conflict severability and effective date.
left blanks so that we could go ahead and set the individual rate and the total rate relative to the solid waste. I will tell you that we did receive, we had planned for an increase, and we did receive a request from Waste Management based upon their CPI, or refuse rate index. The increase will be 4.67%. Again, it's based on using the existing parcel number 1260. So that actually would increase the rate, I believe, do some quick math, it looks like that would increase the rate to $375.12 per unit, or $472,651. Now, as we indicated in the staff report here, and in the next item, we also have a proposal in the FY 13 budget related to solid waste. So, if you want, you can go ahead and you could set a rate here first, or you could wait for the budget discussions and set the rate. We can amend it because we don't have to fill it in yet, so we do have that flexibility. And both items are back to back, so, you know.
I would say we talk about the numbers before we decide on total divided by. I can't get there yet. And the other thing is, this does not include an alternative that we go to the larger trash containers. There's no attempt yet in the numbers to say we can offset that increase by having a different semi-automated solution. I don't think we have that information yet. But as I also recall, we can set a number as long as it's high enough, we can bring it down later. But let's talk about that particular piece of the budget and talk about what you proposed as it would affect this number that we come up with. I think it makes sense to me.
My concern on this particular issue is the contribution for the general fund. And I think that particular part of it is very premature, not having reviewed the rest of the budget. And there's some items that we can talk about later that have been deleted from the capital improvement budget, and yet at the same time, double that amount is here in some contributions to the waste budget. I don't understand why all of a sudden we're giving people free garbage to pick up. So, it hasn't been explained to me in any way that I can understand why we're doing it in the first place. And it hasn't been explained in the context of the rest of the budget. And I'd rather look at the budget in total before we decide anything here. And as Jim said, if we can pick a higher number and decide to have a lower one later, I think that's the prudent course, if there's really the need to make the decision.
I just thought go through the budget. Let's just start with the budget and go through it. I mean, we have enough time left in this day to do it.
Just remember what we just need to do is, when you go back at the end, you do it or take whatever action, you come back and vote on this resolution, which wasn't blanks completed at that time.
All right, so we're going to move this after our budget. All right, moving into budget 7, administrative update. What are we doing with budget?
Right
7A.
now. Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Normally I don't read, but I'm going to read the memorandum introducing the budget and kind of talk as I go through it and give some points, etc. For the record, this memorandum transmits the town manager's recommended town budget for FY 2012-2013 and the capital improvement, CIP. Recommended budget for all funds is $3,397,975 and includes the general fund budget of $1,428,553, which represents 42.04% of the total budget. The distribution of other funds are transportation, $366,571 or 10.79%. Capital improvement program, that is the FY 12-13 budget year, of $1,112,466 or 32.74%, and solid waste of $490,485 or 14.43%. Revenue generated by ad valorem taxes is achieved by a millage rate of 1.2 mils. The capital improvement program, in addition to the capital budget year, provides for an additional $2,200,000 of improvements through fiscal year 2018-19. The FY 2012-2013 budget recommended by town management reflects an intention to move the town forward in a progressive manner while providing town residents some financial relief from the pressures of strain during the poorly performing economy. More specifically, a number of capital projects have been advanced from a progressive standpoint, including the provision of a new town hall and the application of OJM to Putney Canal Road and out-year plans to continue the OJM applications to other towns. Town management also proposes to utilize gas tax revenues in the transportation fund by paying the principal and interest on the capital financing related to the Wasatch Gross Water Control District OJM Road construction project, and to appropriate monies for special projects related to road improvement projects within the town. Town management also proposes a $220,500 contribution from the general fund to the solid waste fund. This would permit a reduction in the solid waste assessment per unit of $175. That was a typo that we provided an updated report for you. And add some financial relief to residents for the coming year. Indicated by bullet points are some of the significant highlights of the FY 2012-2013 budget. The millage rate remaining at 1.2 mils, a transfer of $220,500 from the general fund to the solid waste fund, transfer of $200,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund, appropriation of $500,000 for the kickoff for town hall development alternatives, appropriation of $362,466 for the application of OJM for collecting Canal Road, capital improvement program plan improvements of $2,200,000 through FY 2018-2019. During the fiscal year, town management staff through the implementation of this budget will continue to move forward on engineering services, Okeechobee planning moratorium, the procurement provisions of Okeechobee Boulevard traffic signal, continued replacement of traffic control signage, the ULDC review, planning and zoning fee setting, continued hedging maintenance, and revisions to cost recovery in an effort to meet business plan initiatives identified earlier this year. Now, as I said, this budget is definitely an attempt to be progressive, to move forward on capital projects, and at the same time to help those citizens who have been struggling during this tough economy by virtue of the solid waste. This is also the first attempt at the budget. That great philosopher Samuel Howard once said, "Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is Syracuse." What we're trying to do is take this one step at a time. It's an evolution to maybe a budget next year of more programs related with some strategic initiatives that we've talked about in this plan this year. We're slowly bringing concepts along to move in that fashion. What we would be asking for is a special meeting to set the tentative millage rate, and I do have July 31st as a possibility that we could discuss later, because this is a draft, it is preliminary. And if you believe a workshop is needed, we could try to fit a workshop in before that special meeting, but I would like to at least have a special meeting so that you have the ability to take action, such as set a tentative millage resolution that we must send that on to the property appraiser. I think our current guideline date is August 3rd. So we do have to move forward on this. We can talk about a number of requirements that we have provided here in each budget. We can go page by page if you like. I would add that we received the DR 420 from the property appraiser's office, and it appears that our millage has dropped some additional. It actually went down, and it's going to take the proposal you have here. We currently have it budgeted at $207,730. That will drop to roughly about $206,025. It is a 1.89% rollback from last year. So I wanted to get that out on the table. Also, I do have a number of proposed properties that have different assessed values that I could tell you what they range from based upon the ad valorem tax, if you wanted to know those kind of figures. Not sure how detailed you wanted to get into the budget tonight, so we can do that. We can move forward, however you want to address it tonight. I will say that we have made the attempt, if you look at the capital, after you look through the FY 12-13 budget, if you look at the capital improvement detail sheets, and I know the capital improvements was of great concern to the council, we basically have 5 main projects. And what we did is, on those out years, starting with FY 14, we provided for monies, again, to do, what staff management has believed we want to do in terms of the continued ocean of roads based upon a planning process that we're going to embark on. Councilman Golson made a comment earlier. At this point, because of some of the issues we've been facing with easements and different things, we did not identify any money in the capital improvement program for the linear park. However, I would indicate that if that is council's desire, especially on the out years from FY14 through FY19, we can go ahead and add those monies in, because at this point in time, what it is a spending plan and direction for council to look at in terms of future improvements down the line. So we can go in that direction if council so desires. With that, I've kind of jumped around. I haven't, again, Mayor and Council, I haven't attempted to go sheet by sheet to cover, what's the, what are the proposals per each department, et cetera. I can do that if you want. It's just a question as to how much detail and how much discussion you want to have.
In the interest of time, and I'll confess that I haven't had sufficient time to review, I would think that we should have a workshop to discuss, as he says, item by item, the issues, and proceed on the basis for this evening.
All right. What's your thoughts? What's your study?
Well, what does this do, Mark, if we move this out? I mean, I'm ready to discuss it tonight. I'm certainly going to give you some input tonight, whether you want to do that. But what does this do to the process?
If we we're going to have a workshop, we'd have to have a workshop pretty quickly. As I indicated, I'd like to have a special meeting at least by July 31st. That would give us enough time to get the numbers in and have the resolution prepared, et cetera. Later on, you're going to see us make a request for another special meeting relative to planning for the moratorium. And a thought there is, we could possibly combine both items in one special meeting on the same night, if you'd like to do that, and try to free up the night or two, especially if we're going to do a workshop for the budget. So the workshop would more than likely have to be, next week sometime, so we can, plan for the meeting on the 31st, if that's what you desire. And the only date right now that I can't do it, we can't do it on the 23rd because we do have an AAC meeting. I suppose we could do it, just have 2 meetings going, but staff would have to be here for your meeting. I think on the 24th, there may be a water control district meeting, supervisor meeting, but again, just to make a difference. So we probably have to have it maybe on the 25th or 26th. We're going to go next week.
From what I understand, what we have to do in terms of schedule and publication, we have 2 rates. One's sanitation rate, one's the
The sanitation rate, we need
millage rate.
to do tonight, I believe. I mean, only because we have to have that until we.
But the budget detail, the line item detail, is not something that, if we approve tonight to move forward, we approve it as it is to be discussed for further change. We have options to further change it as long as we don't change, well, we still have options to even change the millage rate, but if we address those in some detail to get comfortable with going forward, at least with the first set of numbers, I think we can have a conversation. I mean, I intend to have a conversation tonight about the budget. It doesn't mean the budget can't be changed before we get to October. We probably change it twice before that, as long as we are cognizant of the millage rate and the rate that we publish for our sanitation. I think we can do that, and Tom alluded to before, we can set a high number. I want to talk a lot about the sanitation idea. I want to commend the town council, the town management for the idea, because they're doing something that I've been trying to do and it can't get done. But we've made some progress. We've made progress. Dragged 4 other council members kicking and screaming 2/10 of a mil last year. But I think their approach is much better this year. But anyway, if you want to talk about it. But there's a lot of budget items in here that I think we can run through, give our comments about them, and we can come back and change them next month. And we can further scrub them, and we can do some other things. I mean, there's one other thing, I guess, that we probably want to do tonight, and respect for our compadres in the Water Control District, is to set officially $150,000 that we agreed to by consensus into the budget somewhere. And so that would be the third item that I think, so maybe in priorities, the sanitation, 150, and then the millage. If you wanna, I think we need to talk about the budget.
Okay. What's your other?
One item we definitely need to talk about tonight is the subsidy for the Ocean roads that's already been paid. We need a clarification on what route we're going to take. We need it tonight to benefit the Water Control Board.
All right, now do we want to go ahead and set up a workshop for the 30th session to hammer out everything?
Mr. Mayor, I mean, what Jim said and what Ron said are fairly contradictory issues. If, you know, one, in my understanding, was one was in lieu of the other.
Right.
So, you know, that's a decision we need to make, we need to talk through, and if that needs to be tonight, then we need to do it tonight. But, if the points of Mark's meeting is to set the rates tonight, if we were to leave the rates to what they were, and then we can change them, and take a more detailed look at the budget, I'm fine with that. If Jim has comments relative to the budget, that's fine. I have comments on things that have been deleted that I find most inappropriate. But I don't know that we need to go into the detail of that this evening. If the concern is for them to meet their deadlines, I think there's people here that are here for other things than the budget, that maybe we should, you know, make decisions we need to make, proceed on with that, and then have a detailed workshop so people who just are concerned about the budget can be there for just that. Because it can go on for hours tonight.
No, and I agree.
Your Honor, if I can, just like to be clear,
Yes.
there are two items that we probably should deal with tonight based upon the comments I'm hearing. First is the solid waste issue, because, you know, we need to, I think our date is the 27th, we have to have those numbers into the property appraisal.
Have a different deadline.
Yeah, they have a totally different deadline. And that can't be a workshop, it should be, you know, that resolution should happen during a meeting. The second is, and I haven't introduced it or talked to a great deal about it yet because, you know, I didn't know where you wanted to go, but is the $360,000 issue with the gas tax and the transportation fund related to the water meter. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. What we have proposed, you know, we have proposed giving the district $300,000 to, and that might not be the number. I know that number may vary. I've heard some accounts it could be as low as 257, or, you know, we're not sure. We got to find out, but that would be $300,000 for the principal and interest relative to the OGEN project the district took on. As you know, the town management had a little bit of concern with the gas tax. So one of the reasons why we proposed this is because we felt that by doing that and actually giving them the entire $360,000 minus about $6,000 we would hold back. Number one, it would resolve the gas tax concerns. Number two, it would allow us to, we believe that the OGEN project is a capital improvement. And so therefore, it allows us to start to meet some of those capital improvement concerns that we had via the comprehensive plan. The OGEN project also increases capacity, so that's a very important thing. And one of the things that we would be requesting if we gave this money and the district is also in agreement is that we intend to capitalize the roads. If we're going to be paying, we would like to see the roads, we book the roads to the town. We've had a lot of discussions about roads and what's going to happen, and you know, and I know the attorneys have talked about it in meetings on Flecking Canal Roads. Flecking Canal Road, we want to go with proper diligence, and we don't want to rush things. So you know, we could use the time frame as we're doing this to also take a look and investigate very carefully what we need to do in terms of special acts, legislation that we need to address issues, you know, within the town roadway system and the interaction between the town and the district. Finally, I would say the rest of the money would be going over to the district, and then as is needed for roadway maintenance and things of that nature, we're hoping that by doing that, by providing that money to them, that would also ease the accounting burden that I think the district seems to think we have placed on them this year in terms of the $150,000 and the requests that we've been approving. And that's been in play now for the last several months. So with that, that is the reason behind that, and I think I understand where Councilman Gerald's going, is that we probably need to get a reading on that tonight, whether you allocate 150 or whether you agree with our proposal and you allocate the $360,000 on the transportation. I was clear, but I'm not be happy to address any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Jim?
We should say, Mr. Mayor, what are your questions?
What are your questions, Jim?
First of all, the understanding of this 360, we are we're in the same ball field, but we're in different perspectives. One of the things that I promised we'd have some specifics for this meeting because it relates to what the Water Control District has to do in terms of the notices. Talks about leveling the playing field for all residents. And it was not, that's the mission, is to say, whatever road you live on in this town, if you go through the process of getting your road cogent, and it's a district road, I have to qualify it to that the town step in and cap the amount that you have to spend per acre. So if you live on the north side of North E, and you have to have the preserve across the street, because you have nobody to help share that cost, that's always been actually the worst case scenario we talked about. And the proposal is that we set a number at approximately $100, and then because of grossing up due to collection costs and whatnot, it's not exactly $100, 104. But the point is, it's the specifics were distributed to you. The idea was to say, wherever you live in this town, it's no different. You live on A Road, you live on North E Road. If you approve Ogen, you only pay $100 an acre, not $150, as some on South Sea would, but $100. That applies to every road. Now, some of the things that we might be doing, and some of the things we've already done on North Road, actually we're contributing to what the cost would have been for North B. We've already diminished their cost when that comes to pass. So we're doing something along the line, but the point was just to make it the same. Wherever you live, you only pay one certain amount. You don't pay a different amount because you happen to be in an area that, quote, is the affected people are less. You live on an acre, you should pay the same thing no matter where you live. That's the proposal concept. It's different than what Mark is suggesting, but it addresses the same loan. It was our share of the loan, and we pay it every year. And the sizing of it, it could change, but I think the numbers that I gave you, are relatively accurate for that group of 4. And if you have 11, of the total 11, you have 4 done, 7 more come up later on, and we may see that that number could grow at any point in time to $100,000 a year. One of the keys to deriving this equalization act, I'll call it, is that we can sustain it. If I pay $300,000 this year, I can't do it every year. And to me, that's something when you do it for folks in the community, you do something one year, they're going to look for it every year. And we shouldn't do it unless we can provide it every year. Unless we're very, very clear up front, say, hey guys, just remember next year, don't come back and tell us that you thought this was going to be forever or for the whole 10 years. So one of the items, key items to doing anything is sustainability. That we can look each year out in time and say, not only can we do this for these 4 segments, we can do it for the other 7. And they all can be treated the same. We don't have to cut it off at some point. And I think that's what my proposal covers. And we've talked about it, so it's not like it's completely foreign to what we've already talked about. The other thing is we have committed, even though I voted against it, $150,000 to the Water Control District. And we need to put that in our budget as that's what they're getting. That's for expenses. They need it for their expenses, not for their capital, the ocean improvement loan. It has to be for that. And beyond that, I guess whatever the council, first of all, the council has to decide whether this idea of normalizing the $100 level is a good idea and approve it. Secondly, they have to approve the 150, but they already did, so I guess it's going to be a continuation of the same vote, which I would vote in favor of right away. And the other thing is this new idea about what else we give towards the capital cost. And I don't think it's sustainable from what's been proposed. That's why I don't agree with it. But the other item is that I have as I mentioned before, I commend the town management for, I wouldn't give 200 and something thousand to the sanitation fund. But I like the idea of giving 126,000, because that equates out to $100 per person. They're gonna see in their pocket day one, and we couldn't give that back to them if we lowered the millage to 0. Well, maybe we could at 0, but we wouldn't. So we definitely couldn't do it. We can't do it to get to 0.7, which I proposed last year, but then this year I would not propose that. Things have changed, and 1.2 is fine. But that's a great way to give money back to folks right away, and we can afford it. And it's sustainable, not the 200. I can't sustain that. I can see 100,000 every year to be added to from our general fund for the next 10 years, as far as I can see. That we can do that, but I can't see the 200,000. But I like the idea, and I think it's a great way to get people money in their pocket. They'll see it, they'll feel it, and they won't really feel the 4% increase. They're going to see a reduction.
Just on that point, thank you for your comments, Vice Mayor. Just on that point, because I don't think I mentioned it, or at least I wasn't clarified, is that our proposal relative to solid waste is for this year only. So it's a one-time proposal. I'm not saying what's going to happen next year. So that's why I think what the Vice Mayor is talking about, he's kind of planning for additional years in terms of solid waste. But we were just referring to this next budget year that's coming up, and then we would have to see beyond that point how we would address that. That's our recommendation, but I certainly understand where you're coming from.
Right, okay.
I think we've had a lot of conversation about, don't lower the tax rate, because you have to raise it. And I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I agree with it. And the whole comment back then was, if we have to raise it, we have to be able to justify it. If we can't justify it, we shouldn't be increasing it. But if we want to do it this way, with the funding to the solid waste, I think we can justify it. I think we can sustain it over the next number of years. And it won't be an increase next year to where they have to pay the $300 and something. It'll be something we can continue. So I like the idea. I like the input. It has to be. I like my premise is it's got to be sustainable.
Okay, Tom?
I don't really know what we're talking about. It's very mishmash. But the concept that we're going to get into the road business to close to $500,000 this year, that we're going to give them 150, and we're going to pay the entire bill for people who voted to have their roads paved and said they'd pay, and now all of a sudden we're going to pay for it. And we're going to give the district 150, and they're going to tell us how high the speed bumps are going to be, and they're going to decide this and they're going to decide that. I think is ludicrous, quite honestly. There's certainly special conditions which I haven't heard discussed tonight, though I've heard them other places. Like, if this is going to happen, we need to have the roads turned over to the town, officially. And if that takes legislative acts, if that takes whatever, we need to do that. We don't just take $500,000 and pass it on. The district didn't get gas tax money before. We got it. Only when we became a town. And to take the entire sum and give it to the district because people said they were going to pay and they don't want to pay now, I don't think is right. And it's changing it's just transferring expense from one to another. And it's reducing significantly, as I said, things that were agreed to. And it changes the deal substantially. And yet there's nothing about how the future relationship of the district, the town, who owns the roads, who owns the canals, who owns the easements, all of a sudden, because there was a concern about, well, we may not have the proper easement for the trails, we take the $100,000 away from that, but somehow on the direct other side of the canal, we're proposing to spend $2 million on it. So logic is totally out the window when it comes to this. I really don't understand it, to be quite honest with you. You know, the answers are not consistent with the situation. If you can't spend money on a trail because it's not yours, how the heck is the road yours? if you had a prescriptive easement of maintenance on the road, well, you've done the same maintenance on the other side on the canal. So how so is one not the other? It's, you know, it's explanations, but it's not sensible, and I don't understand. Now, I'm not saying that if they turn over the roads and a couple other special conditions, I wouldn't think use the gas tax money to do that would be a great idea. But I am saying that without special conditions, and with also giving them 150, and they don't raise their tax rate, and they didn't have to do this, and they didn't have to do that, and they spent $100 grand on a ridiculous lawsuit and an election that didn't accomplish a darn thing, that's not the way for money to be spent. And their stewardship of the funds and the whole situation is not something that I particularly think is being handled properly, because they're coming to us for $500,000.
I mean,
So I'm missing something.
if I can, could I correct, could I update on that? From a town management standpoint, it's not $500,000. What we're saying is, we took an action at your last meeting to, a consensus to give $150,000. What town management is saying is, our recommendation is to substitute that action, to take 150 and to give 360, the gas tax. You may remember there was a lot of discussion about stockpiling the gas tax money and things like that. We're not, our purposes are not to, you know, I would hope that by giving this sum of money to the district would be able to work out the assessment issues themselves and have enough money to do the roads and the things they have to do. But what this proposal also does is it alleviates a lot of our concerns as it relates to the capital aspects that we weren't meeting in terms of you know, it just seems like if we give the 150, all we're doing really is maintenance, and we're not addressing a number of those issues that concern us relative to capital improvements in the plan and using the 5 cent monies and those kind of things. So that was the reason why we substituted the 360 of the gas tax as opposed to 150, but it's not 360 and 150. That's not what town manager was proposing.
Okay.
For clarification purposes.
I appreciate that. And from the standpoint of, as you say, of capitalizing the capital improvement, that, essentially what you're saying when you say this is that you're transferring the ownership of that asset, which is the road, from the district to the town,
Yes.
and that they would need to be in agreement with that
Yes.
for the 360 or whatever the number turns out to be, to apply,
That's correct. That's correct.
to whatever it takes, and they would have to agree to this. Now, and is there some way that this money isn't, well, I guess we have to pay the money on a particular date to the bank, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, we would definitely pay the principal and interest as it relates to that problem.
And what is that date, just so I know?
That I don't know for sure. I know Mr. Sonia could address that.
Paid about $40,000 in February, and yes, 39,000, and paid the balance of 305,000 less the 40,000 in August.
So 305 less 40?
Yeah.
260. So the number is 300, not 360.
That's 305,000 total. There's an interest payment in February, 6 months later is the P and I, principal and interest.
Nevertheless, with caveats, you know, the idea is not that bad, though I still am concerned with what Jim said, which is that people who go through the process, et cetera, and request it, get it, and get the subsidy, and it's not necessarily an ongoing subsidy, whereas someone who is on a road that doesn't get this treatment can say, hey, I want to get my road paved, and I'm going to rely on the fact that the town's going to do that. I mean, a reasonable person would think that that's what's going to happen. So I think we're really getting, once again, deeply into a mess by trying to put a Band-Aid on the situation when surgery is what's necessary in this entire situation. We didn't address in January the issue of the town roads, and everything was hunky-dory. Now, it's, and in January, everybody was paying their bill. I don't remember anybody saying, hey, we need to subsidize people. I do remember Jim's proposal to even, and one of the things we did to even it was to finish off north, and we proposed to do along Collecting Canal so as to take away the issue, with the exception of E Road, of there not being, or, you know, the end being different, nobody paying, whatever that is. But, you know, so we've already done that. We've already agreed to pay that, and that was $130-something thousand that also had additional expenses involved with that. And now we find out that there's issues with collecting canal that are unspecified, but they're issues once again. And all these issues, unresolved though they are, we're still paying. We're still getting deeper. We're still putting more money out of our pocket. So eventually we'll say, well, we've gone this far, we have to go all the way. I'm concerned that what about, you know, we've created an extremely unequal situation. Before, you could say, well, why do those people have a paved road and this guy doesn't have a paved road? Well, they paid for it. That's the answer. Well, now why? Well, they talked to somebody and people thought it might be okay to change it to another thing. And now they don't have to pay for it. Okay, well, does that make any sense? Not really to me. So, I think the whole thing is something that to make a decision tonight is, you know, it's making us decide that we're going to give this money, but we have no control. We have nobody saying, yeah, we're going to agree to this or that or the other thing on the other side. But we're paying the bill and we're getting deeper. So that's my concern.
Okay, Ron?
First of all, it wasn't the district's idea to ask for $360,000 and forfeit the $150,000. The district probably would be happy if we just gave them the $150,000 and left it alone. Okay, personally, I think it's a good idea. I think town management felt like it was a good idea. But the deal with $100 an acre, that's not going to cut it for the simple fact that South B Road's going to get their road for free. North and South F Road got their road for free. Compton, Marcella, Bryan got their road for free. So the only fair way that we're going to treat the taxpayers in this town right is if we pay for the Ojum roads with gas tax funds. A couple of you up on this board have been wondering why in the world town management has a hard time spending gas tax funds on these roads. Okay, they come up with an idea how to spend $360,000 and nobody likes it. Now the purpose of the $360,000, I spent a lot of time talking with John Ryan because he is the money man when it comes to figures and stuff like that with the Water Control Board. At the same time, if we approve this $360,000 to pay for the Ojum roads that have already been paid, that the people agreed to pay for because that was the only way they could get a paved road, which was safer than what they had, okay? If we agree to this, instead of their assessment being reduced down to $90-something per acre, their assessment will remain the same as everybody else's assessment. The people on F Road, the people on Compton, Marcella, they pay $137.95 per acre. So really the people, if we pay for these Ojum roads, then their assessments does not decrease because they got a paved road. Their assessment stays the same. So if their assessment stays the same, that means the Water Control Board, they can manage off the $360,000. Okay, most of that money is going to be going to pay the assessment debt, okay, for the pavement. But the leftover money combined with the residents still paying $137.95 per acre will give them what they need to survive for this next year. Now, I've talked with John, I've talked with others. That doesn't mean that next year we're going to do the same thing. But the truth of the matter is we're only giving them the gas tax money we've got coming in this year that we're going to receive. We've got $600,000 in the bank that people have been complaining about, hey, why don't we start spending it on roads, okay? So the way I look at it for the future is if next year, 2013, we decided that we didn't want to do that anymore, we've still got enough money in the gas tax funds that we could advise the Water Control District ahead of time that this is the last time we're going to do it. We feel like everybody needs to pay for their own Ojum. We don't want to spend gas tax money on paving roads in Loxahatchee. So you have a year to get you to go back to the same thing that they have to go to here shortly. It's assessing people for these paved roads. Now, the way I see it is we've got one road where people say they never want it paved, is E Road, okay? I find that hard to believe, but if they don't want it paved, it's not gonna get paved, because we're not gonna force it on them, all right? We've got other roads, Mary Ann Miles has had a hard time trying to get the petition to vote on North B Road. It's taken her months, okay, before North B Road, even if the people still, whether we pay for it or not, whether we can pay for it or not, the people still have to vote that they want it paved, the majority. So that may not happen for another year or two. There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm not a money man, I'm just a common sense type person, but with $600,000 in the bank of gas tax money that we got, with $360-something thousand coming in this year, okay, we can afford to, as these roads add on, we can afford to do the same thing for them as we do for these 4 roads, okay? If it gets to the point where we can't afford it, and we don't have over $3 million in the bank, and our money don't have, to me, all I've seen since we've become a town is our bank account getting bigger and bigger. All right, now, the interest we're making on this $2 and $3 million is 0.0-something%. Taxpayers out here paying for this Ojum because they wanted a safe road to ride on, they're paying 3% on this debt. Now, how in the world can we sit up here as a council and say we want to make the best for Loxahatchee, we want to save the taxpayers money and stuff like that, when we don't want to pay the debt, get it paid off, and allow banks to make 3% off our taxpayers? So basically, we do have to make a decision tonight. We can give them $150,000, and they'll be happy about it. Should be a lot easier for Cleet, because he won't have to go back to the bank. He won't have to redo any of figuring as far as assessments to the taxpayers and stuff. So that's probably the easiest route for the water control district. Just give them $150,000. But I'm not concerned about the water control district. I'm worried about people having to pay for Ojum roads when we receive this money coming in, $360,000. We'll have almost $1 million in gas tax funds sitting in this town. Now, what does it take for us to use that money wisely and do something with it? So I'm proposing tonight that we take the $360,000 and we pay the first year of that debt assessment, and we see how it goes from there. And we give the people that's willing to pay for their payment 1 year of relief. You know, next year they may have to be assessed by the water control district. We take 1 year at a time, and it's no different with the waste management. People are hurting this year. Next year, I hope things are better than in 2013 than they are in 2012. Maybe people won't be hurting so bad. But we need to concentrate on the present day and how we can help the taxpayers in this community. And that's back to the final thing, and it is not right. People on South B Road voted not to get their road Ojum, and I know some of them that wanted an Ojum, and they were going to vote yes, but some people in this town convinced them and campaigned for them to vote no so that they could get it free. Okay? Well, the truth of the matter is they would have never gotten it free if the college hadn't come to town. All right? But the thing is, they are getting it free, and that's not right for these people that have to pay for it out of their money. And that's where I'm coming from with this. So I say we forget the $150,000. We agreed to pay the $360,000 for the debt assessment, and we move on from there. And then when new roads want to get paved, it may take a year or 2 years down the road if this town can afford to pay for those roads to get paved. And we pay for it out of gas tax funds, and we help the residents.
Okay, Ronnie?
I'd like to hear from the district to see what they think about receiving the 360 and capitalizing the roads. And if they're for it, then I'd be inclined to move forward with that. But
They're not going to give you the answer.
yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying.
I can help you out.
Yeah.
I can help you out.
The government is.
You have
We
my
would have to
comment card.
propose it with them agreeing to that.
Okay, let's go around and let's get what we think on it, and then, because that's what we're doing.
But I see a lot of positives in acquiring the roads, and it will down the road make it a lot easier as far as a lot of our headaches with the district, non-district, town, private roads, if we can clean that up, it would be to the benefit of the residents and the town. So, as long as the district's for it, I'm inclined to be for it too.
Okay. My thoughts are kind of a combination. Number one, I don't believe that $150,000 is us subsidizing the water control.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We are given so many dollars per lane miles. Of that, $150,000 is less than what they would have coming to them just to give them their lane mileage. That's all. We're not subsidizing squat. We're giving them their lane mileage. They have about half the roads in Los Angeles Groves. Now, I like what Jim said as far as sustainability. And I'm all for giving our part of our part of the leftover gas tax money. If it's $260 this year, if it's $300, whatever it is, toward that, the OJMing of those roads. Hopefully then for a shared ownership. Right now, the league doesn't have any problem with this. They're giving us our gas tax money. We don't have any problems right now. But if somehow we can work together toward a shared ownership of the roads, then it kind of works out. I want to make sure we have enough to do some of the roads that are not district roads, to maintain and do hedging and things like that on those. That would be improvements on those. I would hate to throw the whole, $305,000 on that debt, because I agree. I did not vote for the OJMing of my road. Don't want to pay for it, but if we can get relief, and if we can put another $150,000 toward that, well, then the people that voted for the roads are still paying something. I still have a concern that it comes out of the correct pockets. In other words, the people that are paying for the OJM right now it's based on acreage. And people voted that way to get their roads done. And if all of a sudden the town comes along and says, well, we're going to pay for all of it, then it benefits more the large landowner that might not live out here than it does the other. So I think we should take our gas tax money and subsidize that and work something out to where it helps those that have voted on the OJM. Not take the whole burden away, but help with that. So I think some place in the middle. But, I think the $150,000, I don't even know why we're debating that, because that's just their lane mileage, and it's probably would be more than that, and that's how we collect it. I mean, that's,
If they turn the roads over to us, then it's not their lane miles anymore. If we're paying for why are we gonna then pay?
No,
It's their lane
we're
miles.
talking about lane miles, it's the town's lane mileage, we have designated district roads, we have designated non-district roads, because the district roads are the ones that the district has historically needed to maintain at certain standards to operate under their charter.
Sure.
But when it comes to lane mileage, it's the town.
it's all of it, and we have jurisdiction over all of it,
Right.
and that's what we collect our gas tax money on.
But at the same time, Mr. Mayor, you said that's their lane miles. So, that's what my point is. This is such a complete mess. A complete, and we're not doing anything to make it better. If we could come to the conclusion that we're going to do X, Y, Z in order to get clarification of what it is, and get the town, and get the roads turned over to us as right, and I've heard other people say that they'd like to see. That's one thing, but if all we're doing is giving them money because it's their lane miles, it's our lane miles, it's all ours, but part of it's theirs, I really don't understand that. You're not gonna get me to say, yeah, okay, I'm gonna buy into that concept, because I just heard what Mike said, and it was contradictory to what other people have said, so how can it be our lane miles and their lane miles? We're just giving them their lane miles, and yet they're all ours. Come on, that's not even in English.
What I'm saying is our town does not pay to maintain half of the lane mileage that we collect gas tax money for.
I agree that we don't do what we should be doing with the gas tax money. I've been an advocate to do more stuff with the gas tax money, and in giving all the money for that, we're not gonna do anything for the town roads.
And we need to pick up.
And we need to
all
pick
of the
up on
roads.
it. We need to,
All of the roads.
there's people that live on town roads that also deserve to have something done once in a while.
I agree.
Okay, there's people who live on district roads who need to have district services provided, yet for some reason, they're not provided in their area.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
clarification. What I proposed is to normalize the cost. It's not the same thing as what Ron's talking about, it's not the same thing as the 360, it's not the same thing, it's very different. It's a completely different concept. It's intended to take a look at the fact that different road segments cost the person who has an acre on that road a different amount of money to get over. That shouldn't be. And I'll bring it up again, we've always thought about North E would be the worst case. And we need to make available to those folks and the right to request the road and know that they can pay the same thing that somebody on A road paid. That's all that was intended to do. It's not to do anything else. Beyond that, you can do anything beyond that. But it's also something that we could sustain. We could do it every year. Everybody would be subject to the same. They could expect it if they decided to do an OJU, they could expect what the cost would be no greater than. And we could do it for every one of the, I'll call 11 segments in this town, 4 of an OJU. We can do that. We have the money to do that. And if we grant it day one, I'm hard pressed to do something day one and can't continue to do it each year thereafter, because I'll point out that if we pay the full boat on the 4 lanes, and in 5 years, while this current node is still open, we're paying $300,000 a year, and you have the rest of the lane segments come up. You're talking about over $1 million a year that we would pay. We wouldn't have any gas tax money in reserve anymore. That'd be long gone. We wouldn't have the basis to continue to do that. We don't have that money. One of the things you do when you look at spending, you look out not just the current year, you got to look at what you'll do in the years to come. Because you can't live like a rich guy one year and a poor guy the next year. You got to look at, like I mentioned, sustainability and predictability and controllability. But on that note, I guess, could we agree, if nothing else, that we hold the millage at 1.2? I mean, that would make some progress here on the,
All right.
what it needs to happen.
Jim's making a motion.
I made a motion, we maintain millage 1.2.
Okay, further discussion from council.
Sounds like a great idea.
I've got, and it's for the other thing, but I've got 4 public comments. Got Don Whiting, Ian Corning, Luke Saunier, Frank Shower. So Don Corning.
By the way, young man, we're very pleased to see you here tonight.
Very pleased to be here. Thank you. My pleasure, Mark.
You like that, Jim?
Thank you. And likewise to you, so you know too.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Browning, council members. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I'm Don Whiting, 13169 Marcel Boulevard, Loxahatchee Grove, resident and landowner since 1974. And so I'll give you a minute of Don Whiting, the resident, and I'll give you another minute of Don Whiting with the Board of Supervisors. How's that? The mayor will remember when we served together on the Water Control District, probably a year or two before incorporation materialized. I took some time off work with the district administrator, our district council, people that were advocates from the incorporation committee, went downtown and talked to some pretty high-priced lawyers about this gas tax revenue issue. We understood, and there was an expectation all through the incorporation process, that gas tax revenue was a linchpin decision, and it's caused us nothing but heartaches ever since. Because the way I view it, after listening to what Tom had to say and all of you, I think you all have good points, okay? So, what the problem is, from my perspective, is, as a landowner, I'll speak first. For over 30 years, I paid my assessment to the Water Control District. I paid my taxes to Palm Beach County. I got nothing for it on the road that I lived on. 40 landowners got nothing. We used to have to borrow money or borrow equipment, my own tractor. We would scrape up $5, $10 a piece from neighbors to grade our own roads. That's how we lived for 30 years. Got nothing, zero, but the district got the money, the county got the money, got nothing back. So here comes this promise of this thing called gas tax money that would help maybe someday take that aggravation away from us. And so now here we are all these years later, and we're still arguing about gas tax money. I personally don't think gas tax money should be used to fund reserves for the town. You get it a year, you spend it a year. Sooner or later, somebody's gonna ask you, why are you getting that gas tax revenue, what are you using it for? Nothing. I think your general fund, your ad valorem taxes should be used legitimately to fund your reserve balance, but not the gas tax revenue. I also thank you again, Mr. Mayor, on the record, for making this record, for getting it straight about this gas tax money to the district is not a subsidy. Some of our own district supervisors have said, and I've criticized my own board members for refraining from using that term, because the way I look at it is, you know, we're all in the same boat. We're all residents. I alluded to that at the water control commission the other night. This decision that you're making tonight and the strategies that you're working, this is kind of a watershed moment. This is the time for us to say, is this going to be some defining moments that we can finally say to our community that the water control district and the town can really get along together? We say it, we think it, we want people to believe it. We got to vote that way, and we got to get back into the wallets of the people here, because the people are hurting out there. Our goal from the water control district is to try to reduce our assessments, just like you tried to do with your millage. I agree with Jim about sustainability. There's a lot of strategic things that need to be done that aren't there yet. These are growing pains. But what we're suffering from still, we're still trying to put out little fires and not focusing collectively on the strategic planning that needs to be done. We're getting there. We can do the interlocal agreements on the road maintenance. Tom, I'm sure the district would be more than glad to work through that. Just what you said, I agree with that. Personally, I don't care who owns the road. I don't care who's in charge of it. I don't care that we've got 10 people trying to run this little town. I just want to live here comfortably and as affordably with a good quality of life, just like the rest of you. So again, whatever support you can give to the district is appreciated, because that's not our money. It's not the district's money. It's the residents' money. My job on the board of supervisors is going to make sure I do everything I can to keep their costs down. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Dina?
First question. I thought that some of the issues around the gas tax money were the same issues that Greenways. Last time, the attorney and management advised you not to use the gas tax money. Has something changed? Have we resolved any of that?
Do you want comments? Just make the comment.
Well, there seemed to be strong advice not to dip into the gas tax money at the current time until further legal advice had been made. So I'm just curious about that.
I do. My understanding of the issue with the grant wasn't the expenditure of gas tax. My understanding of the issue with the grant and what we gave an opinion on was that in talking with the state, they want to know the exact locations of where the trails were going to be, and once you identify the exact locations of the trail, you had to provide documentation to show site control for those locations. None of that was in the grant application by the deadline it was submitted, and so I was asked to do is whether I could give an opinion that was in the grant application met the state requirements for site control, and I was not able to do that based on our review of the information that I had at the grant and talking with the state. So, you know, site control is an issue that may or may not relate to both issues, the grant and the horse trails and roads, but the issue that I reviewed was a very specific one for the grant, and was not able to give that opinion after the grant had been submitted to satisfy the requirements of the state document.
So it has nothing to do with the timberland company and all that?
No. I mean, I would be happy to talk to you about that, but it was a very different issue than what's being discussed tonight. Okay.
One of the things that I'm noticing in the budget is while we have, and I know you only see $500,000 for next year and you're not seeing the following of $1 million, we're proposing to have a town hall for $1.5 million ultimately.
Okay, right now, if you would, save that for the workshop. We're talking about our motion to approve the, or the millage.
The millage only.
Yeah, or will be your own. But you're all I do.
Well, in that case, you know, I would really love if the trails got cleaned up a little bit in that process.
Okay.
You know, I thought in reference that we were discussing on there's item 7, we were discussing the reduction in this entire budget.
We were talking the gas tax money, and we were talking the budget overall. The motion is on that, but we want to address.
Because I certainly don't see anything, no matching funds, no 6th court, $30,000, no linear park, which you guys mentioned.
A lot of that will be hammered on the workshop, and I know you'll be there. Okay. Please, Tanya.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, council members, Clayton Sonny, Washington U.S. Water Control District. Just a few clarifying things I wanted to say. I don't want to bog you down with a lot of details, but something that town management suggested as to our current interlocal agreement and the accounting procedures that we're supposed to be providing for them. It really is no burden. It was a matter of just understanding what they were looking for and our staff being able to work together as compared to your previous management company and the previous management company before that. So those transitions do take some growing pains, and now I think we've got that worked out pretty well. I think that it's a very noble idea and a very progressive idea as to what was proposed by town management tonight as far as paying for those debt assessments. But in terms of our schedule and logistics involved and what we would need to determine and making sure that all the dots are dotted, or I's are dotted and T's are crossed is initially to have this workshop meeting we've been discussing in September. To my knowledge, my board has made no policy decision whatsoever as far as turning or dedicating roads over to the town. But they did agree that that would be a subject of conversation and discussion at the workshop meeting in September, which the Intergovernmental Committee has discussed with Mr. Goldsmith serving on that. To make that decision now in light of the unknowns involved in committing that much money toward a debt assessment payment contingent upon the dedication of those roads to the town by October 1st of this year, which is when those tax funds would have to be coming towards us, to the district, would be probably highly unlikely to be able to work out all the legal issues. There might be condemnation issues that you'll have to consider, just to name a few. But Mr. Goldsmith was right on when he was discussing that, as far as the issues that would be involved in being able to work all those details out. We approved our budget, the board approved the preliminary budget and assessment rate based on the $150,000 funding that you as a council had suggested and approved at your June council meeting. And so that was presented in my budget to the board, which they approved, and the assessment rates were established accordingly, including those lowered maintenance assessments for those landowners on the lettered roads at Gotthogen and the debt assessment rates for those lettered roads. And then lowering our current assessment rate down, rollback rate to what it was prior to this $100 and some thousand we spent on the qualified elector election. But there is a lot of policy directives that need to take place between yourselves and the board, and I believe that we're all on the same page as far as needing to discuss that in a lot more detail at this workshop meeting. But if you could, and if there's a possibility for you to do so tonight, we are do so tonight to approve the $150,000 or not, approve the $300 and some thousand or not. One way or the other, we need to know, please, some direction tonight, because our board has to have a special meeting on the 24th. It's already scheduled Tuesday night, July 24th, to either affirm or change our special assessments that we've already established to go, that must be submitted by July 27th, the following Friday. So having not seen your budget or even hearing in great detail what was involved in the $360,000 for the debt assessments, it sounds like a great idea, something that we should possibly pursue if that's the council's desire and the board wants to be a part of that. Of course, it's ultimately their decision, the board, as far as receiving and being able to apply it. The financing issues that may be involved with the bank and any institution, I'm not sure if you can commit future years of gas tax revenues toward a loan for financing something. There's also the issue of whether or not OJM is actually a capital improvement. I know town management believes that it is. I have strong reservations about that. It is a stabilized road surface. It doesn't have curbs, gutters, drainage inlets, et cetera. So there may be issues around that. I don't know. But those are a lot of issues that we need to get our arms wrapped around, I think, personally, that before we can kind of safely move forward in that direction with the debt assessment write-off, starting October 1 of this year. And with that, I would just, again, thank you for your time.
Question?
Yes.
Like Jim's out there about if we come up with a game plan in the future, $100 per acre, would it be, can you check for future reference, would there be a prepayment penalty as far as if we come up with a game plan like that?
We can look into that, yes.
Okay.
I believe as the assessments are today, they're already fairly close to $100 per acre for the debt. Just FYI, so maybe.
If they are, maybe we want
I
to
don't
drop
know.
it just as if we're down to 75 refunds.
But again, it's another detail that needs to be worked out. Thank you.
Thank you, please. Frank Shallow. Give me that. No comments. He's already.
Hey Frank, how are you? I was doing good until I heard comments from Councilman Golson. I came up here to straighten it up here. Frank Shiloh, 13434 Marshall Boulevard. As a neighbor to John Whiting, I think he hit the nail right on the head. But something that nobody has brought up here, and Councilman Golson said it, that the district wasted over $100,000 on the referendum. The district did waste the money, but we were bound under the law. And as ludicrous as I think the law was in that instance, the resident landowners followed the law. They got the petitions here. They did everything that they needed to do. Our council advised us that we needed to follow the law, and this is what it cost us. The district did not go out and just throw $100,000 away on our own. I can talk for all five guys because we already discussed this. There's not one of us up there that was for this referendum. There's not one of us up there for spending over $100,000. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. I don't know if that's, because that's the way that I got it sitting back there, that the district wasted $100,000. Yes, we wasted $100,000 taxpayer money. Do we want to do it? Absolutely not. And we all made that perfectly clear. I would have rather taken that money, throw it in C-51, and have a bunch of people jump in and try to get it out. So I wanted to put that on the record. It's the same thing as saying the council wasted how many hundreds of thousands of dollars on comp plans or whatever. Well, you know what?
You're right.
The bottom line is the state says you had to do it. If you didn't do it, you're breaking the law. And that's something that we took an oath to do up there on the water control district. You do on the town council is to follow the law. Sometimes ludicrous as it is, you have to follow it until somebody comes along and makes changes to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the building tree? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, now as far as with last month, we approved the $150,000.
By consensus, we did.
Right. So my thought is, and this other, I mean, we need to work out. We've got some stuff that we're gonna work out. As far as the ownership, we've got this meeting in September. I think we need to carry that through. We've already made a motion, it's passed. And for budgetary purposes with the Water Control Board, I say we go that route. Starting with.
I'll make a motion that we approve $150,000.
We already did.
We did it by consensus, and we put it in our budget for now.
I thought we voted on it. We made a motion and voted on it.
I think,
What do you need now?
I didn't bring.
4 to 1, 3 to 1.
What do you need to know so that we can get?
Do a motion. So if you didn't have a motion before, if
Should
you
make a
have one
motion.
before, a second motion is not going to kill anything.
Okay. Take a motion.
I make a motion that we, did I just say, make a motion? I make a motion for $150,000
As a substitute.
to our budget as a transfer to the water control district.
Okay, Ryan
As
second.
The same program we've used most recently, like the current fiscal year, same concept.
Yes. Okay, further discussion?
Well, I want to clarify that we're going to use the currently existing interlocal agreement and the same requirements for accounting for the $150,000 that currently exists.
All right with that? Fine.
Yes.
You all right with it?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Mark, is that?
All right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, let's take a real quick break, 5 minutes, stretch.
Good job, Franklin. You too, John.